Commander Zilthak's 4 eyes trembled as he stared at the security footage playing on the main screen of the Galactic survey ship Nexus Prime. The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of life support systems and the nervous clicking of his crew's claws against their control panels. "Play it again," Zilthak commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. The holographic display flickered and reset. Once more, they watched the grainy footage from mining station Delta 7. The timestamp showed it was recorded just 6 standard hours ago, before all communication with the station had mysteriously ceased. The image showed the station's main corridor, dimly lit by emergency lighting. Everything appeared normal until minute mark 3:47. Then it appeared. A massive, dark shape moved across the frame with impossible speed. The creature was enormous, easily the size of a small transport vessel. But it moved with fluid grace that defied its bulk. Its form was difficult to make out in the poor lighting, but what they could see sent waves of terror through the bridge crew. The beast had 4 powerful appendages that struck the metal flooring with thunderous impacts. Each step created small tremors that shook the camera. Its head was long and angular, filled with what appeared to be gleaming white fangs. Most disturbing of all was the sound it made. A deep, rhythmic panting that echoed through the station's corridors, like the breathing of some ancient nightmare. The creature paused directly in front of the camera for exactly 4.7 seconds. During those moments, the crew of the Nexus Prime got their clearest view of the monster. Its eyes reflected the emergency lighting like twin suns, glowing with an intelligence that was both alien and terrifying. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the beast vanished into the shadows. "Analysis, Science Officer Krent," Commander Zilthak ordered, trying to keep the fear from his voice. Krent, a thin Zalarian with pale blue skin, manipulated the holographic controls with shaking tentacles. "Commander, based on the creature's size relative to the corridor, I estimate it weighs approximately 800 to 1,200 standard units. The speed calculations are disturbing. It moved at nearly 50 kilometers per hour through those corridors, which means it could outrun most of our emergency escape pods." "What about the mining crew?" asked Communications Officer Prex, her antenna twitching nervously. "All 847 miners and support staff are missing," Krent reported, his voice growing quieter with each word. "No distress signals were sent. No emergency protocols were activated. Whatever this creature is, it eliminated the entire station complement in under 6 hours. Commander Zilthak felt his stomach turn. Mining Station Delta 7 wasn't just any outpost. It was one of the most secure facilities in this sector, protected by military-grade shields and automated defense systems. The miners were experienced professionals, many of them veterans of the Krillian Wars. They weren't defenseless civilians. "Sir," called out Tactical Officer Vorn from his position at the weapons console, "I'm detecting massive structural damage to the station's lower levels. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. It looks like something tore through the reinforced titanium plating, like it was paper." "With what?" Zilthak demanded. "Unknown, sir. The damage patterns don't match any known weapons or natural phenomena. Whatever caused this appears to have used brute physical force." The bridge crew exchanged glances. In the known galaxy, very few species possessed the raw physical power to tear through military-grade hull plating. The Gorvakians had that kind of strength, but they had been extinct for over 2,000 years. The legendary war beasts of Arcturus were powerful enough, but they existed only in children's stories and ancient mythology. "Commander," Prex spoke up, her voice trembling slightly, "I'm receiving priority transmissions from 17 different vessels in this sector. They're all reporting the same thing. Oh, which is strange contacts on their long-range sensors. Massive, fast-moving objects that appear and disappear without explanation. 3 cargo haulers have reported hearing unusual sounds coming from their hull exteriors during their night cycles." Zilthak's blood ran cold. "Sounds?" "Scratching, sir. And something that the crews describe as heavy breathing echoing through the ship corridors, even though their atmospheric sensors show no unauthorized life signs aboard." The commander stood from his chair and began pacing the small bridge. This was unlike anything in his 40 years of galactic service. He had fought pirates, negotiated with hostile alien species, and even survived the siege of Corwan Prime. But this creature, this thing that had appeared from nowhere, represented something entirely new and terrifying. "Do we have any theories about what this creature might be?" he asked. Science Officer Krent called up a new display showing various known species profiles. "I've run comparisons against every creature in the galactic database, sir. Nothing matches. The size suggests it might be some form of apex predator. But the intelligence we observed suggests something far more dangerous than a simple animal." "What do you mean?" "Watch this segment again, Commander." Krent isolated a portion of the footage showing the creature pausing in front of the camera. "Look at its behavior. It's not random. The creature deliberately positioned itself where it knew it would be recorded. It wanted us to see it." A chill ran down Zilthak's spine. The implications were terrifying. This wasn't just some mindless monster. It was intelligent, and it was sending a message. "Furthermore," Krent continued, "analysis of the audio reveals something disturbing. The creature's breathing pattern suggests it wasn't exerting itself. Despite moving at tremendous speed and causing massive structural damage, its respiratory rate remained steady and controlled. This suggests its destructive capabilities are far beyond what we witnessed." Weapons Officer Vorn looked up from his console with a grim expression. "Commander, I've been running combat simulations. Based on the creature's observed speed, strength, and size, our standard defense protocols would be inadequate. Our plasma cannons might wound it, but given the structural damage it inflicted on the mining station, I doubt they would stop it." "What about the station's defenses?" Zilthak asked. "Automated turrets, force fields, blast doors. All of them failed to slow the creature down. In fact, looking at the damage patterns, I don't think the creature even noticed them." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. Commander Zilthak had fought in 3 major wars and countless smaller conflicts. He had seen weapons that could crack planets and shields that could deflect solar flares, but the idea of a single creature that could ignore such defenses was beyond his experience. "Sir," Communications Officer Prex announced suddenly, "I'm receiving a transmission from the research vessel Endeavor. They're requesting immediate assistance." "And one. Put them through." The main screen switched from the security footage to a live transmission. Captain Thorne of the Endeavor appeared, his usually calm demeanor replaced by obvious panic. Behind him, his bridge crew was running frantically between control stations. "Commander Zilthak," Captain Thorne began without preamble, "we need immediate evacuation. The creature. It's here." "What's your status?" Zilthak demanded. "We detected it on our long-range sensors 3 hours ago. At first, we thought it was debris or a small asteroid. But then it began moving toward us. We tried to outrun it, but—" Captain Thorne paused as his ship shuddered violently. "It's faster than we are." Through the transmission, Zilthak could hear the distinctive sound they had heard in the mining station footage, that deep, rhythmic breathing echoing through the corridors. "It's inside the ship," Thorne continued, his voice breaking. "We sealed all the airlocks, activated every security measure we have. Nothing stopped it. The creature appears to be moving through our ship at will." "How many crew do you have aboard?" Zilthak asked. 237 scientists and support staff. "We're evacuating them to the emergency pods as fast as we can, but the creature seems to be hunting them systematically." The transmission was interrupted by a sound that made everyone on the bridge freeze. A long, mournful howl echoed through the Endeavor's corridors, so deep and powerful that it seemed to vibrate through space itself. It was the sound of something vast and alien. Something that should not exist. "Captain Thorne, respond," Zilthak shouted. The transmission flickered and stabilized. Captain Thorne reappeared, but now his face was pale with terror. "Commander, you need to see this. I'm transferring our internal security feed." The screen split, showing both the Endeavor's bridge and a corridor deep inside the research vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the creature appeared. Zilthak had thought the mining station footage was disturbing, but this was far worse. In the better lighting of the research vessel, They could see the creature clearly for the first time. Its hide was dark and appeared to be covered in some form of natural armor. Its massive head moved back and forth as if it was tracking scents. Most terrifying of all, it moved with obvious purpose and intelligence. The creature paused at an intersection of corridors and raised its head. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of massive teeth, and it released another of those bone-chilling howls. The sound was so powerful that it caused visible vibrations in the ship's hull. "It's calling for something," Science Officer Krent whispered. "That's not a hunting cry or a territorial display. It's some form of communication." "Communication with what?" Zilthak demanded. Before anyone could answer, their worst fears were realized. Through the security feed, they watched as two more creatures appeared from different corridors, responding to the first one's call. They were slightly smaller but moved with the same terrifying grace and intelligence. "There are more of them," Captain Thorne said unnecessarily. "They're coordinating their movements. They've divided my crew into 3 groups, and they're systematically cornering them." Zilthak made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his career. "Captain Thorne, abandon ship immediately. Get your people into the emergency pods and launch them all at once. We'll pick up as many survivors as we can. But the research data, 20 years of scientific discoveries. Forget the data. Get your people out of there now." The next few minutes were pure chaos. The Nexus Prime's crew watched helplessly as the Endeavour launched dozens of emergency escape pods in all directions. Most of them made it clear of the research vessel. But 3 pods were caught by the creatures before they could escape. Through the sensors, they watched the horrifying sight of the creatures leaping through space itself, moving from the Endeavour to the escape pods with impossible agility. The pods were torn apart like toys, their occupants consumed in seconds. "How are they surviving in vacuum?" Tactical Officer Vorn asked in amazement. "They don't need atmosphere," Science Officer Krent replied, his voice filled with scientific fascination despite the horror. "They're somehow capable of existing in the void of space. This completely contradicts everything we know about biological life forms." The Endeavour itself lasted only a few minutes longer. The creatures moved through the ship with systematic efficiency, and soon the massive research vessel was nothing more than a twisted wreck floating in space. Commander Zilthak ordered the Nexus Prime to retreat to a safe distance while they recovered the surviving escape pods. Of the 237 crew members aboard the Endeavour, only 89 had survived the encounter. As the survivors were brought aboard and processed through medical, their stories painted an even more terrifying picture of the creatures. The beasts had shown clear intelligence, problem-solving abilities, and something that disturbed the survivors most of all. They seemed to be studying their victims before killing them. "They would corner groups of us and just watch," reported Dr. Janek, one of the senior researchers. "They could have killed us immediately, but instead they observed our behavior. They were learning." "Learning what?" Zilthak asked. "How we move, how we communicate, how we react to fear." It was like being studied by some incredibly advanced predator species that was cataloging our weaknesses for future encounters. Commander Zilthak retreated to his quarters after ensuring the survivors were properly cared for. He sealed the door and activated his personal communication array, establishing a priority connection to Galactic Command. Admiral Cronus appeared on his personal screen, his expression serious even before Zilthak began his report. "Admiral, we have a code black situation in the Outer Rim," Zilthak began. "I'm aware, Commander. We've lost contact with 7 ships and 3 stations in your sector in the past 12 hours. What are you dealing with out there?" Zilthak spent the next 30 minutes providing a detailed briefing. He shared the security footage, the survivor testimonies, and his crew's analysis of the creatures. Admiral Cronus listened without interruption, but Zilthak could see the growing concern in his commander's expression. "Admiral, these creatures represent a threat unlike anything in recorded galactic history. They're intelligent, incredibly powerful, and they appear to be spreading throughout the Outer Rim. We need to establish a quarantine zone and mobilize the fleet." Admiral Cronus was quiet for several long moments. "Commander, I'm upgrading this to a code red situation. The entire 7th Fleet is being deployed to your sector. You are to maintain your position and continue monitoring, but do not engage these creatures under any circumstances. Understood, sir. There's something else, Commander. We've received reports of similar creatures appearing in 2 other sectors. This may not be an isolated incident. Zilthak felt his stomach drop. You think there are more of them? We don't know. What we do know is that every ship and station that has encountered these creatures has been completely destroyed. The only survivors have been those who managed to escape in the first few minutes of contact. After ending the communication, Commander Zilthak returned to the bridge. His crew was monitoring long-range sensors and maintaining their position at what they hoped was a safe distance from the destroyed Endeavor. Any sign of the creatures? He asked. Nothing on sensors, sir, reported Science Officer Krent. It's as if they simply vanished. But I've been analyzing the electromagnetic signatures from the attack, and I've discovered something interesting. What is it? The creatures appear to generate some form of natural electromagnetic field. It's unlike anything in our databases, but it might explain how they're able to survive in vacuum and move through space. Could this field be tracked? Possibly. But we would need to recalibrate our sensors completely. And Commander? There's something else. The electromagnetic signature suggests these creatures might not be native to our galaxy. Zilthak turned sharply toward his science officer. What do you mean? The energy patterns don't match any known species or natural phenomena from our region of space. If I had to guess, I would say these creatures originated from somewhere beyond the galactic rim. The implications were staggering. If these creatures were indeed from outside their galaxy, it meant they had traveled impossible distances to reach inhabited space. It also meant there might be an entire civilization of such beings, somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies. As the hours passed, more reports came in from across the sector. The creatures had struck 3 more targets: a passenger liner, a military patrol vessel, and an entire mining colony. In each case, the pattern was the same. Complete destruction. No survivors except for a few who escaped in the first moments of contact. But perhaps most disturbing of all were the reports from the few survivors who had gotten close looks at the creatures. They all described the same thing. Despite their terrifying appearance and massive size, the creatures seemed to be controlled by some form of intelligence that went beyond mere predatory instinct. They weren't just hunting us, reported Captain Vex, the sole survivor of the patrol vessel. Defiance. They were herding us. Like they were following some kind of strategy or plan. As Commander Zilthak prepared for what might be the longest night of his career, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were facing something far more dangerous than a simple invasion. These creatures were scouts or advance forces for something larger. Something that had traveled across the void, between galaxies for purposes that were completely alien to galactic civilization. The emergency lighting on the bridge cast long shadows as the crew maintained their vigil. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an intelligence that defied understanding was moving through their sector, leaving destruction in its wake. And despite all their technology, all their weapons, and all their knowledge, the crew of the Nexus Prime could do nothing but watch and wait for whatever came next. In his private moments, Commander Zilthak found himself wondering if they were witnessing the beginning of the end of galactic civilization, as they knew it. These creatures represented something beyond their understanding, something that challenged every assumption they had about life, intelligence, and the nature of existence itself. The hunt had begun. And for the first time in galactic history, humanity and all the other civilized species were not the hunters. They were the prey. Admiral Cronus stood in the command center of the massive dreadnought Galactic Sovereign, watching as holographic displays showed the deployment of the 7th Fleet across the Outer Rim. 47 of the most advanced warships in galactic space were converging on what military analysts were now calling the Terror Zone. A region of space where contact with these mysterious creatures had been confirmed. Admiral, called out Fleet Intelligence Officer Commander Sage, a Canthari with distinctive silver skin that marked her as one of the galaxy's most brilliant tactical minds. We've completed our analysis of all available data from the creature encounters. Report. Sir, we now have confirmed contact reports from 19 different incidents across 3 sectors. The pattern is consistent. Complete destruction of ships and stations. No survivors except those who escaped within the first few minutes of contact. But we've discovered some disturbing inconsistencies. Admiral Cronus turned from the tactical display to face Commander Sage directly. In his 60 years of military service, he had learned to pay attention when his intelligence officers reported inconsistencies. They usually meant the situation was more complex than it appeared. What inconsistencies? The timing, sir. These creatures appear to be striking targets across a region of space that would require faster-than-light travel to cover in the observed time frame. Yet none of our sensors have detected any FTL signatures associated with their movements. Could they have some form of propulsion technology we can't detect? It's possible, Admiral, but the energy requirements for moving creatures of that size at faster-than-light speeds would be enormous. We should be able to detect the energy signatures from such technology, even if we couldn't identify the specific propulsion method. Admiral Cronus frowned. After 3 days of reports, the creatures had become the single greatest threat to galactic security in recorded history. Yet, the more data they gathered, the less sense any of it made. There's something else, Admiral, Commander Sage continued. The attacks themselves show a pattern that suggests advanced intelligence, but there's no apparent strategic objective. If these creatures were an invasion force or advanced scouts for a hostile civilization, we would expect them to target specific strategic assets. Military installations, major trade routes, communication hubs. Instead, they seem to be attacking random targets. Maybe their strategic goals are beyond our understanding. Perhaps, sir, but there's another possibility we need to consider, which is, these creatures might not be hostile at all. At least, not intentionally. Admiral Cronus stared at his intelligence officer for several long seconds. Commander, these things have killed over 3,000 people in the past 3 days. How do you define hostile? Sir, what if the damage they're causing is accidental? What if they don't understand that they're destroying our ships and killing our people? The concept was so alien to Admiral Cronus's military thinking that he had difficulty processing it. Explain. Commander Sage activated a new holographic display showing comparative size analyses. Admiral, based on the observed creature sizes, an average specimen would mass approximately 50 times more than our largest battlecruisers. From their perspective, our ships might be no more significant than insects are to us. Insects? Consider this, sir. When you walk through a forest, do you carefully avoid stepping on every ant in your path? Do you notice when your movements accidentally disturb an insect hive? The destruction these creatures are causing might be completely inadvertent from their perspective. Admiral Cronus felt a chill run down his spine. The implications of Commander Sage's theory were almost more disturbing than the idea of a hostile invasion. If these creatures were causing massive destruction without even realizing it, then communication and negotiation might be impossible. What evidence supports this theory? The lack of strategic targeting, for one. Also, the survivor reports consistently describe the creatures as appearing curious rather than aggressive. They observe, they investigate, but they don't seem to attack with malicious intent. They're still killing people, Commander. Yes, sir. But perhaps only because they don't understand that we're intelligent beings. From their perspective, we might be no more significant than bacteria. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from the Nexus Prime. Admiral Cronus accepted the call, and Commander Zilthak's image appeared on the main display. Admiral, we have a significant development. The creatures have returned to the debris field of the destroyed research vessel, Endeavor. Are they attacking any remaining survivors? No, sir. That's what's strange. They're not showing any interest in the escape pods or life support systems. Instead, they appear to be investigating the wreckage itself. Admiral Cronus exchanged glances with Commander Sage. Investigating how? They're moving through the destroyed sections systematically, examining the technology. Our sensors indicate they're somehow analyzing the ship's computer systems, power cores, and even the molecular structure of the hull materials. They're studying our technology, Commander Sage observed. It appears that way, Admiral. But here's the most disturbing part. They're rebuilding sections of the ship. What? The creatures appear to be capable of manipulating matter at the molecular level. They've reconstructed approximately 30% of the Endeavor's hull, and the rebuilt sections are actually stronger than the original materials. Admiral Cronus felt his understanding of the situation shift yet again. Are you saying these creatures are trying to repair the damage they caused? It's beginning to look that way, sir. And Admiral, there's something else. We're detecting massive electromagnetic anomalies throughout the sector. It's as if space itself is being altered by their presence. Altered how? Gravitational fields are fluctuating, subspace communication is becoming more efficient in some areas, and we're detecting energy signatures that suggest these creatures might be accidentally improving our local space environment. Admiral Cronus ended the communication and stood in thoughtful silence for several minutes. Everything about this situation challenged his preconceptions about first contact scenarios. In his military training, alien encounters fell into clear categories: peaceful contact, hostile invasion, or neutral observation. This defied all categories. Commander Sage, I want you to run a new analysis. Assume these creatures are not hostile. Assume they're simply unaware of our existence as intelligent beings. Based on that assumption, predict their likely next actions. Yes, sir. While his intelligence staff worked on the new analysis, Admiral Cronus reviewed the deployment of the 7th Fleet. The warships were maintaining a safe perimeter around the affected sectors, but their weapons would be useless against creatures that could survive in vacuum and manipulate matter at the molecular level. 6 hours later, Commander Sage returned with results that changed everything. Admiral, if we assume these creatures are non-hostile and unaware of our intelligence, their behavior patterns make perfect sense. They're explorers. Explorers? Think about it, sir. They appear from the void between galaxies. They investigate our technology with obvious scientific curiosity. They attempt to repair damage they accidentally cause, and they're improving the local space environment. These aren't the actions of an invasion force. Then what are they? They might be the equivalent of our own deep space exploration teams. Highly advanced beings from another galaxy who are studying our region of space, completely unaware that they're accidentally destroying inhabited worlds and ships. The theory was compelling, but Admiral Cronus remained skeptical. If they're so advanced, how could they not notice intelligent civilization throughout 3 sectors of space? Scale, sir. Consider the size difference. These creatures are massive beyond our normal comprehension. From their perspective, our entire galactic civilization might be operating on a scale so small that they simply don't recognize it as artificial or intelligent. This, like bacteria in a petri dish. Exactly. A scientist studying bacteria might accidentally destroy entire colonies without even noticing, simply because the scale of bacterial civilization is beneath their awareness threshold. Admiral Cronus was beginning to understand the true scope of the problem they faced. If Commander Sage was correct, then the 7th Fleet wasn't facing an invasion. They were dealing with a first contact scenario where the other side was completely unaware that contact had occurred. What do you recommend? We need to find a way to communicate with them, to make them aware of our existence as intelligent beings, but the scale difference presents enormous challenges. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the command center. Admiral Cronus rushed to the tactical displays and felt his blood turn cold. Report, he barked. Admiral, one of the creatures has appeared directly in the middle of our fleet formation, reported the tactical officer. It's moving between our ships, apparently investigating them. Are our ships taking evasive action? No, sir. Captain Morrison of the Stellar Pride reports that the creature appears curious rather than aggressive. It's maintaining a safe distance and making no threatening moves. Admiral Cronus watched the tactical display as the massive creature moved gracefully between the fleet's most powerful warships. The scale was breathtaking. The creature was larger than 3 battle cruisers combined, yet it moved with the fluid grace of a deep space pilot navigating a complex asteroid field. Sir, reported the communications officer, Captain Morrison is requesting permission to attempt first contact protocols. Denied. We don't know enough about these beings to risk direct communication. Admiral, Commander Sage spoke up. This might be our opportunity. The creature is showing obvious interest in our ships, but it's being careful not to cause damage. This could be the evidence we need that they're aware of our intelligence. Or it could be a predator studying prey before attacking. Sir, with respect, if this creature wanted to destroy our fleet, our weapons would be useless against it. The fact that it's maintaining a safe distance suggests it recognizes our ships as something more than simple matter. Admiral Cronus made a decision that would define his career. Open a channel to the entire fleet. All ships are to power down weapons and maintain defensive positions only. No aggressive actions unless directly attacked. Sir? The tactical officer looked confused. If Commander Sage is correct, then aggressive actions on our part could be interpreted as hostile. We need to demonstrate that we're intelligent beings capable of peaceful contact. For the next 4 hours, the entire 7th Fleet maintained a peaceful formation while the creature investigated them. The being moved from ship to ship with obvious curiosity, spending extensive time near each vessel's communication arrays and computer systems. Admiral, reported the sensor officer, the creature is generating some form of electromagnetic field that's interfacing with our computer systems. It's not causing damage. It appears to be attempting to understand our technology. It's trying to learn about us, Commander Sage observed. Then something extraordinary happened. The creature positioned itself directly in front of the fleet's flagship and began generating a complex series of electromagnetic pulses. The patterns were clearly artificial, obviously designed to convey information. It's trying to communicate, Commander Sage exclaimed. Can we decode the signals? The computer is working on it, Admiral. The patterns suggest mathematical concepts, prime numbers, geometric relationships, physical constants. Standard first contact mathematics, Admiral Cronus realized. They're following the same protocols we would use. The communication attempt continued for 2 hours. The creature demonstrated knowledge of advanced mathematics, physics, and even basic chemistry through electromagnetic signals. It was clearly intelligent, clearly peaceful, and clearly attempting to establish meaningful contact. But then, without warning, the creature suddenly stopped communicating and began moving away from the fleet at tremendous speed. Where is it going? Admiral Cronus demanded. Unknown, sir. But it's heading toward the inner systems. Admiral, there are inhabited worlds in that direction. All ships pursue at maximum speed. We need to warn the civilian populations. The 7th Fleet engaged their fastest engines, but the creature was moving far more quickly than any ship in the fleet. Within hours, it had reached the outer edge of the Kepler system, home to nearly 40 billion inhabitants across 7 worlds. Admiral, we're receiving panic transmissions from Kepler Station, reported the communications officer. The creature has appeared near their main orbital platform. Put them through. Station Commander Yathra's image appeared on the main screen, his blue-skinned face tight with barely controlled fear. Admiral, the creature is here, but it's not attacking. It's playing. Playing? It's moving around our station in complex patterns, generating electromagnetic fields that are creating beautiful light displays in our atmosphere. Our xenobiology teams think it might be trying to entertain us. Admiral Cronus stared at the screen in amazement. Commander, you said it's entertaining you? It appears that way, sir. The creature seems to be performing for our benefit. It's been generating harmless light shows and electromagnetic patterns for the past hour. Our children are watching from the observation decks. They think it's the most wonderful thing they've ever seen. Any signs of aggression or hostility? None at all, Admiral. If anything, the creature seems playful. It responds to our external lighting changes by altering its own display patterns. It's like it's trying to engage in some form of interactive communication. Admiral Cronus realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. This wasn't just first contact. It was contact with beings so advanced that they viewed galactic civilization as something to be protected and entertained rather than conquered or studied. Commander Yathra, maintain peaceful contact. Document everything. We're dealing with beings whose intentions appear benevolent. Understood, Admiral. As the hours passed, reports came in from across the Kepler system. The creature had visited all 7 inhabited worlds, apparently introducing itself to the populations through elaborate displays of light and electromagnetic artistry. Not a single person had been harmed, and the creature showed particular interest in areas where children were present. "Admiral," Commander Sage reported, "I think we've been completely wrong about the nature of these beings." "How so?" "The pattern of their behavior suggests they're not explorers or invaders. They're caretakers. They're gardeners tending to a cosmic garden. And they've discovered that our region of space contains intelligent life." "And the destroyed ships and stations?" "Accidents, sir. Imagine if you were walking through a garden and accidentally stepped on a flower bed. You might try to replant the flowers, but some damage would already be done." Admiral Cronus reviewed all the data they had gathered over the past week. The pieces were beginning to form a picture that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, technology, and the nature of life in the universe. These creatures weren't invaders or even explorers in the traditional sense. They were cosmic gardeners, beings so advanced that they moved through the universe tending to younger civilizations, protecting and nurturing them without even realizing the scale at which those civilizations operated. The destruction they had caused was genuinely accidental, the result of beings operating on such a vast scale that they initially hadn't recognized the existence of smaller intelligent life forms. But once they became aware, their behavior had immediately shifted to protection and benevolent contact. "Commander Sage, I want you to prepare a full report for Galactic Command. We're not dealing with an invasion, or even a first contact scenario in the traditional sense." "What are we dealing with, Admiral?" "We're dealing with gods," Admiral Cronus said quietly. "Benevolent cosmic entities who have discovered that we exist and are now trying to figure out how to interact with us without accidentally causing harm." "And the other creatures that have been reported across the galaxy? Probably more of the same. A family of cosmic gardeners making their rounds, discovering intelligent life, and trying to establish benevolent contact." As the Galactic Sovereign maintained its position in the Kepler system, Admiral Cronus found himself contemplating the implications of their discovery. Galactic civilization had always assumed that if they encountered beings significantly more advanced than themselves, the contact would follow familiar patterns: negotiation, trade, cultural exchange, or conflict. Instead, they had encountered beings so advanced that traditional concepts of diplomacy and warfare were meaningless. These entities operated on scales of space and time that made galactic civilization appear as brief and small as a garden flower blooming in spring. Yet rather than ignoring such small life, these cosmic beings had chosen to cherish it, protect it, and find ways to interact with it that brought joy rather than fear. The question now was whether galactic civilization was ready to accept its place in a universe where it was not the dominant form of intelligence, but rather a beloved and protected junior member of a cosmic community that spanned distances and scales beyond imagination. Admiral Cronus suspected that this realization would transform galactic society in ways that no one could predict. The age of thinking they were alone in the universe was ending. The age of cosmic gardeners had begun. Captain Sarah Chen floated peacefully in the observation lounge of her exploration vessel Wandering Star, watching three magnificent creatures play in the void of space outside. Their massive forms moved with impossible grace, chasing each other in complex spirals around her ship, their electromagnetic fields creating brilliant aurora displays against the backdrop of distant stars. She sipped her coffee and smiled as the largest of the three, a beautiful specimen she had named Atlas, performed an elaborate barrel roll that sent cascades of blue and gold light rippling across the hull of her ship. Atlas had always been a show-off, even back when he was small enough to fit in her lap. "Good boy, Atlas," she called out, knowing he could hear her through the ship's external communications array. The creature immediately oriented toward the observation lounge and generated a gentle pulse of warm yellow light, his way of saying hello. Sarah had been traveling through this sector for 3 weeks, documenting unusual gravitational anomalies for the Human Colonial Survey. It was peaceful work, exactly the kind of long-range exploration mission she preferred. Just her ship, and her 3 companions exploring the vast emptiness between inhabited systems. Her companions had grown considerably since she first brought them aboard as puppies 12 years ago. At the time, genetic modification was common among human explorers who wanted pets capable of surviving in the harsh conditions of deep space. The process was expensive and time-consuming, But the results were worth it. Loyal, intelligent companions who could share the loneliness of long-range exploration. Atlas, Freya, and Thor were Great Dane and German Shepherd genetic hybrids, enhanced for space survival and increased size to help with the psychological isolation of deep space travel. At full maturity, they massed nearly 800 kilograms each and were capable of surviving in hard vacuum for extended periods. Their enhanced neurological systems allowed them to navigate three-dimensional space with the same intuitive grace their ancestors had once shown on Earth's plains and forests. Sarah's peaceful morning was interrupted by an urgent transmission from her ship's communication array. She accepted the call and found herself looking at a distinctly non-human face. Unknown vessel, the alien being announced in accented but understandable standard galactic. This is Admiral Cronus of the Galactic Navy. You are in violation of quarantine protocols for this sector. Identify yourself immediately. Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. Quarantine protocols? Admiral, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Survey vessel Wandering Star. What quarantine protocols? This is open space, Captain Chen, Admiral Cronus replied, his expression shifting from authoritarian to confused. Are you aware that there are 3 massive hostile entities in close proximity to your vessel? Sarah looked out the observation lounge window, where Atlas was now floating upside down while Freya and Thor took turns gently bumping him with their snouts. Hostile entities? The creatures surrounding your ship. We've been tracking them for weeks. They've destroyed numerous vessels and stations throughout this sector. Creatures? Sarah looked at her companions again, then back at the Admiral. Sir, are you referring to my dogs? Admiral Cronus was silent for nearly 30 seconds. Your what? My dogs, Atlas, Freya, and Thor. They're genetically modified, Great Danes and German Shepherds, enhanced for deep space companionship. Captain Chen, Admiral Cronus said slowly. Those entities have been responsible for the deaths of over 3,000 beings across 19 different incidents. They've destroyed starships and space stations. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Oh no, oh, no, no, no. She immediately activated her ship's external communications and called her companions. Atlas, Freya, Thor, get back inside right now. The 3 creatures immediately responded to her voice, moving toward the ship's cargo bay with obvious eagerness. Sarah could see them clearly now through the internal cameras as they entered the specially designed airlock. In the harsh lighting of her ship's cargo bay, she understood how they might appear threatening to beings who had never seen Earth animals. Atlas alone was 3 meters long and stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder. His enhanced genetics had given him a sleek, predatory appearance, while his space modifications included natural armor plating that covered his back and sides. His eyes, enhanced for navigation in the void, glowed with reflected light that could appear menacing to strangers. Admiral, Sarah said, her voice filled with horror. I need to know exactly what happened. My dogs would never intentionally hurt anyone. Captain, are you saying those creatures are domesticated animals? Yes, sir. They're pets, companion animals. Admiral, I swear to you, they would never intentionally cause harm. If there have been casualties, it was accidental. Admiral Cronus was joined on screen by another alien, a silver-skinned being who appeared to be some form of intelligence officer. Captain Chen, the newcomer said, I am Commander Sage. Can you explain how creatures of that size could be considered pets? Sarah realized she was dealing with beings who had no concept of humanity's relationship with animals. Commander, on Earth, humans have a long history of domesticating animals for companionship, work, and protection. These 3 are descendants of dogs, wolves that were domesticated by humans over 50,000 years ago. Wolves? Large predators from Earth. Humans learned to live alongside them, and over thousands of generations, they became loyal companions. My 3 companions are genetically enhanced versions designed for deep space exploration. Captain, Admiral Cronus interrupted. These creatures have demonstrated the ability to survive in hard vacuum, manipulate matter at the molecular level, and travel faster than our most advanced ships. You're telling me they're pets? The genetic modifications were extensive, Sarah admitted. Enhanced size for psychological comfort during long missions. Vacuum survival for safety. Improved intelligence for better companionship. And gravity manipulation for three-dimensional movement in space. She paused, watching through the internal cameras as Atlas, Freya, and Thor settled into their favorite resting spots in the cargo bay. They looked like overgrown puppies, despite their massive size and enhanced abilities. Admiral, may I ask what specific incidents you're referring to? If my companions cause damage, I need to understand what happened, so I can prevent it from occurring again. Admiral Cronus shared the security footage from Mining Station Delta 7. Sarah watched in growing horror as she saw Atlas moving through the station's corridors. From the perspective of the security cameras, her gentle companion looked like a monster from nightmares. "Oh, Atlas," she whispered. "Admiral, I think I understand what happened. My companions have been enhanced for intelligence. But they're still dogs at heart. They're naturally curious and playful." Playful? Dogs explore their environment by investigating everything around them. They use their mouths to examine objects, they follow interesting scents, and they play by chasing and wrestling. If Atlas entered that mining station, he would have been investigating it the same way a dog investigates a new environment. Sarah pulled up the genetic modification records for her companions. According to their enhancement specifications, they're capable of molecular manipulation as a safety feature. If they accidentally damage something while playing or exploring, they're programmed to attempt repairs. The creature was trying to repair the damage it caused? Yes, sir. Dogs have an instinctive desire to please their pack leaders. If Atlas realized he had accidentally broken something, he would immediately try to fix it. Commander Sage spoke up again. "Captain Chen, your companions have demonstrated behavior that we interpreted as advanced intelligence and strategic planning. They coordinate their movements and appear to communicate through electromagnetic signals." Sarah nodded. "They're pack animals. They naturally coordinate with each other, and the electromagnetic communication was part of their space enhancement package. They need to be able to communicate across vacuum during exploration missions. But the patterns they generate are incredibly complex. They're speaking to each other in dog language, Commander. The complexity is because they're enhanced dogs with increased intelligence. They're probably discussing where the best places to play are, or which of them gets to explore the next interesting object they find." Admiral Cronus was staring at her, as if she had just claimed to control cosmic forces. "Captain Chen, are you telling me that beings capable of faster-than-light travel, molecular manipulation, and survival in hard vacuum are acting like pets?" "Yes, sir. They're very advanced pets, but they're still dogs. They want to play, explore, and please their pack leader. That's me." To demonstrate, Sarah called her companions through the internal communication system. "Atlas, come here, boy." Through the screen, Admiral Cronus and Commander Sage watched as the massive creature that had terrorized their fleets responded immediately to Sarah's voice. Atlas bounded through the ship's corridors like an overgrown puppy, his massive form moving with impossible grace until he reached Sarah in the observation lounge. Sarah reached up and scratched behind one of Atlas's enormous ears. The creature's response was immediate and unmistakable. He leaned into her touch and began generating the electromagnetic equivalent of purring. "Good boy," Sarah cooed. "Who's a good boy? Who's my big beautiful boy?" Atlas's response was to generate complex patterns of light that pulsed in rhythm with his contentment. To the aliens watching, it looked like a cosmic entity expressing joy at the touch of a being barely 1/20th its size. "How is this possible?" Admiral Cronus whispered. Sarah looked directly into the camera. "Admiral, I think you don't understand what humans are. We don't just domesticate animals. We form pack bonds with them that transcend species barriers. These three consider me their pack leader, their family. They would do anything to protect me and make me happy. But you're so small compared to them. Size doesn't matter to dogs, Admiral. What matters is the bond. Atlas here would sacrifice himself to save me without hesitation. not because I'm physically dominant, but because I'm his family. To further demonstrate the relationship, Sarah picked up a specialized toy she had brought for the journey. A sphere designed to withstand the incredible bite pressure of her enhanced companions. She threw it across the observation lounge. Atlas, fetch. The massive creature immediately bounded after the toy, his movements shaking the ship slightly despite the inertial dampeners. He retrieved the sphere and returned it to Sarah, his tail wagging with such force that it created visible vibrations in the ship's hull. "He's playing fetch," Commander Sage observed, her voice filled with amazement. "It's one of his favorite games," Sarah confirmed. "All three of them love to play fetch. Although we usually do it in open space, where there's more room." Admiral Cronus seemed to be struggling to process what he was witnessing. "Captain Chen, your companions have been responsible for massive destruction across multiple sectors because they were trying to play with unfamiliar objects and got excited when they saw new people," Sarah realized. "Admiral, imagine if you had never seen a dog before, and suddenly you encountered three massive, friendly creatures who wanted to investigate you and play with you. From their perspective, they were being friendly." "Friendly?" Sarah called up the footage of the Endeavour incident and pointed out details the aliens had missed. "Look at their body language here. See how their tails are wagging? That's a sign of excitement and happiness. And here, when they approach the escape pods, they're not attacking. They're investigating. Dogs investigate new things with their mouths. They destroyed the escape pods because they were trying to figure out what they were. To a dog, if something is small and moves, it might be a toy to play with. They probably thought the escape pods were some kind of game." The horror of the situation was becoming clear to Sarah. Her beloved companions had been trying to make friends and play with aliens who had no understanding of Earth animal behavior. What the dogs saw as friendly investigation and playful interaction, the aliens had interpreted as predatory attacks. "Admiral, I need to ask, have my companions shown any signs of trying to communicate peacefully?" "They generated complex electromagnetic signals that appeared to be mathematical in nature." Sarah nodded sadly. "They were trying to say hello. The mathematics were probably them attempting to demonstrate their intelligence so they could make friends." "Make friends? Dogs are pack animals, Admiral. They naturally want to include others in their pack. When they encountered your ships, they were probably excited to meet new potential pack members." Commander Sage looked thoughtful. "Captain Chen, this explains many of the behavioral patterns we observed. The creatures showed curiosity rather than aggression. They attempted communication, and they seemed to be studying rather than hunting. They were trying to understand you so they could properly interact with you," Sarah confirmed. "Dogs are remarkably good at learning how different species communicate and adapting their behavior accordingly." Admiral Cronus was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "Captain Chen, are you telling me that humans routinely travel through space, accompanied by creatures capable of destroying our most advanced warships?" "Well, yes," Sarah said. "Although Atlas, Freya, and Thor are particularly large examples, most space-modified dogs are much smaller. There are more of them?" "Oh, Admiral, there are millions of dogs among human space travelers. They're considered essential for long-range missions because of the psychological benefits of companionship. Millions. Dogs, cats, birds, and dozens of other companion species. Humans have been modifying animals for space travel for over 2 centuries. It's one of our most common technologies." Admiral Cronus and Commander Sage exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They were beginning to realize that their first contact with humanity was revealing something far more significant than they had initially understood. "Captain Chen," Admiral Cronus said carefully, "exactly how advanced is human genetic modification technology?" "I'm not sure what you mean, Admiral. This is pretty standard stuff. Any human colony with a basic laboratory can perform these modifications. Creating creatures capable of faster-than-light travel and molecular manipulation is standard?" Sarah looked confused. "Well, yes. You can't have pets in deep space without those capabilities. How else would they survive?" The implications were staggering. Humans didn't just have technology that rivaled the most advanced galactic civilizations. They considered it so routine that they used it to modify pets for companionship. Captain Chen, Commander Sage asked, what other modifications have humans made to animals for space travel? Sarah pulled up a catalog on her ship's computer. Oh, there are hundreds of different modifications. Enhanced intelligence for cats so they can operate ship systems. Atmospheric adaptations for birds so they can survive on different worlds. Size modifications for various species, depending on the psychological needs of their human companions. She scrolled through page after page of genetically modified animals, each one representing capabilities that would be considered miraculous by galactic standards. This cat breed has been modified for telepathic communication with humans. These rabbits can survive in the vacuum of space and reproduce in zero gravity. These dolphins have been enhanced for underwater exploration on ocean worlds. Telepathic communication? Admiral Cronus whispered. It helps with bonding during long missions, Sarah explained casually. Admiral Cronus realized they weren't just dealing with an advanced human civilization. They were encountering a species so far beyond galactic technology that they casually created beings that galactic science would consider cosmic entities, just to have pets to keep them company while exploring the universe. Captain Chen, he said slowly, I think we need to arrange a formal meeting. The Galactic Council will want to discuss establishing proper diplomatic relations with humanity. That would be wonderful, Admiral. Humans have been hoping to meet other intelligent species for centuries. How many humans are there in space? Sarah consulted her ship's database. Current human population across space is approximately 800 billion, distributed across 12,000 worlds and countless exploration vessels. The number struck the aliens speechless. 800 billion humans, each one potentially accompanied by genetically modified creatures with capabilities beyond galactic understanding. Admiral, Sarah continued, I should probably mention that my companions and I are just civilian explorers. If you want to meet with human military forces, they're significantly more advanced than what I have here. Admiral Cronus felt his worldview shifting fundamentally. The creatures that had terrorized 3 sectors of space were the equivalent of human house pets. The technology required to create them was considered basic by human standards. And somewhere in the galaxy, there were 800 billion humans, each one representing a level of technological advancement that made galactic civilization appear primitive by comparison. Captain Chen, he said finally, I think this conversation is just the beginning of a very long and very interesting diplomatic process. Sarah smiled and gave Atlas another scratch behind his massive ears. I hope so, Admiral. Humans love making new friends, and I think you'll find that once you get to know them, dogs really are man's best friend. As the communication ended, Admiral Cronus stared out at the 3 creatures now playing happily around the human ship. Cosmic gardeners, his intelligence officers had called them. Beings so advanced that they operated on scales beyond galactic comprehension. They were dogs, pets, companions, for a species so technologically advanced that they casually created godlike beings, just to have someone to play fetch with during long journeys through space. The age of human contact was beginning, and Admiral Cronus suspected that galactic civilization would never be the same.